The air was so thin at 13,000 feet that Maya Carter could taste metal with every breath. Through her scope, she watched 3 insurgents climbing toward her squad with enough explosives to erase a city block. Her finger hovered over the radio, but before she could transmit the warning, the mountain turned to fire, and everyone she knew disappeared into smoke. When the dust settled, 8 bodies lay buried in rubble. Only one person remained standing. Her. But before we dive into this impossible story of survival and the longest combat shot in modern warfare, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. This story gets more unbelievable with every minute, and I need you here until the end. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Maya's story travels across this world. Now, let's go back to the morning it all began. Maya Carter woke at 0445 hours to the sound of nothing. That was the thing about the Hindu Kush mountains' silence had weight here. It pressed against your eardrums like water pressure at the bottom of the ocean. She'd been in country for 7 months, and the quiet still made her nervous. She sat up on her cot, careful not to make noise. The men were still sleeping. Johnson snored like a diesel engine. Ramirez had his arm over his face. Webb the captain slept on his back, perfectly still. Even unconscious, the man looked like he was standing at attention. The men. Always the men. Maya pulled on her boots in the dark and slipped outside. Afghanistan's dawn didn't creep, it detonated. 1 second black. The next, the sky cracked open in gold and crimson, painting the mountains like they'd been dipped in blood. She stood there, breathing mist into the frozen air, feeling the cold bite through her jacket. This was her ritual. Every morning. Alone, with the silence and the ghosts. She walked past the sandbag barriers, past the bored private on watch, who nodded without really seeing her, and found her spot, a flat rock overlooking the valley where the world dropped away into nothing. She sat, pulled her rifle across her lap, ran her fingers over the barrel. "Morning, baby girl." Her father's voice, clear as gunfire. Master Sergeant David Longshot Carter. Dead 7 years now, blown apart by an IED on a road outside Kandahar when Maya was 19 and stupid enough to think she could save the world by joining up. She closed her eyes. "Morning, Dad." Some people prayed. Some people wrote letters. Maya talked to a dead man. "Big day today. Just recon," she whispered to the wind. 9 of us watching a valley. In and out. Nothing's ever just recon, Maya. I know. Do you? She opened her eyes and stared at the valley below purple in the early light. Her father had been a legend. 247 confirmed kills. A ghost who could put a round through a keyhole at 1,000 meters in a sandstorm. They'd called him Longshot, and the name wasn't a joke, it was a threat. When he died, Maya signed the papers the next week. Everyone thought it was grief. They were wrong. It was unfinished business. "You still hearing it?" her father's voice asked inside her head. "Yeah." "What's it saying? That I don't belong here?" "Who's saying that?" "Everyone." "Does it matter?" Maya didn't answer. She heard boots on gravel behind her. Ghost. Corporal Danny Reeves. 23 years old farm kid from Iowa, cocky as hell and twice as reckless. He had a wife back home named Sarah and a baby girl he'd never met. Carried their photo in his helmet. Showed it to everyone. "You're up early," Maya said without turning around. "So are you." He sat down beside her uninvited. "Can't sleep." "Sleep fine." "Liar." He pulled out a cigarette, offered her one. She shook her head. He lit up, exhaled smoke into the dawn. "You nervous about today?" "No." "You should be." She looked at him. Why? Because Hernandez is spooked. And when Hernandez is spooked, bad things happen. Hernandez is always spooked. Not like this. Reeves took another drag. He told me last night he had a dream, said he saw fire, said he saw all of us burning. It's just a dream. Yeah, well, last time he had a dream like that, Morrison got shot through the neck. Reeves flicked ash off the edge of the cliff. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open today. I always do. I know you do, Ghost. That's why you're still alive. He stood up, stretched. Cap wants us wheels up in 30. You good? Always. He walked away. Maya sat there for another 5 minutes, listening to the silence, then headed back to gear up. The barracks tent smelled like sweat and gun oil and instant coffee. The men were awake now, moving through the morning routine, checking weapons, taping down loose straps, writing last letters home they'd never send. Maya sat on her cot and field-stripped her rifle for the 3rd time that morning, cleaned the bolt, oiled the chamber, checked the scope alignment. Carter. She looked up. Sergeant First Class Luis Hernandez stood over her. 40 years old, El Paso born, 3 kids back home, and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone by bad news. Sergeant, you good for today? Yes, Sergeant. He stared at her. I need you sharp, not good. Sharp. I'm sharp. You see anything, and I mean anything, you call it. You don't wait. You don't think. You just call it. Understood. Understood. I don't care if it's a goat. I don't care if it's a rock that looks funny. You call it. I will. Hernandez didn't move, just kept staring at her with those dark, tired eyes. My oldest daughter, he said quietly. She's your age, 26. She wants to join up. I told her no. Maya said nothing. You know why I told her no? No, Sergeant. Because every time I look at you, Carter, I see her, and it scares the hell out of me. He turned and walked away before she could respond. Maya sat there, rifle across her knees, and felt something cold settle in her chest. At 600 hours, Alpha Squad loaded into 2 Humvees and rolled out into a world painted red by the rising sun. 9 soldiers. Captain Richard Webb, 34. West Point, 2 tours engaged to a lawyer in Virginia he hadn't seen in 14 months. Sergeant First Class Luis Hernandez. Corporal Danny Reeves. Specialist Marcus Johnson, big guy, former college football player, laughed at everything. Private First Class Jamal Malik. Quiet kid from Detroit, read philosophy books, wanted to be a teacher. Private First Class Carlos Torres, medic. Steady hands, prayed before every mission. Specialist David Kim, tech guy, could fix anything, hated the food. Private Aaron Owens. 18 years old, fresh out of basic, still thought war was an adventure. And Maya. Staff Sergeant Maya Ghost Carter. The only woman. The only sniper. The one they respected but didn't trust. She sat in the back of the 2nd Humvee rifle between her knees, staring out at the mountains. The road twisted through valleys so deep you couldn't see the bottom. Every turn felt like falling off the edge of the world. Ghost! She looked up. Reeves was leaning over from the front passenger seat, grinning that stupid grin. Yeah. Sarah had the baby. Maya blinked. What? Got the email this morning. 3:18 a.m., 8 pounds 4 ounces. Amelia Grace Reeves. His grin got wider. I'm a dad, Ghost. I'm a goddamn dad. Something warm moved through Maya's chest. Congratulations. I didn't even know if she was going to make it, you know, Sarah's small. Doctor said it might be complicated. But she did it. She's a fighter. Reeves pulled out his phone, showed Maya a photo, a red-faced baby with a tuft of dark hair. "Look at her. She's perfect." "She is." "I gotta get home, Ghost. I gotta meet her." "You will." 43 days. That's all I got left. 43 days and I'm on a plane. He stared at the photo for a long moment, then put the phone away. "You ever want kids?" Maya shook her head. "No." "Why not?" "Because I'd be a terrible mother." "Bullshit. You'd be great. You're patient. You're careful. You notice things." "That's not the same as being a mother." "Maybe not, but it's a start." Reeves turned back around, still grinning. "Amelia Grace, can you believe it?" Maya smiled despite herself. "I can believe it." 43 days, she thought. He's got 43 days left. That number would haunt her later. They reached the observation point at 0857 hours, a ridgeline overlooking a valley the intelligence reports said was a Taliban supply route. The mission brief had been simple. Establish Overwatch record movement report patterns. No engagement unless fired upon. Simple. Webb set up the command post behind a cluster of rocks that looked like God had thrown them there in anger. Hernandez positioned the squad in a defensive perimeter, fields of fire overlapping everyone with hard cover. "Ghost," Webb called out. "I want you high. Get above us. Long eyes." "Roger that." Maya climbed. 50 meters up the slope, then another 50, until she found what she was looking for, a notch between two boulders with a clear line of sight to the valley and the ridgeline behind them. Perfect sniper nest. She settled in. Laid out her kit, ammunition, rangefinder, spotting scope, water, energy bar she wouldn't eat. Then she looked through her rifle scope and let the world shrink to a circle of magnified clarity. This was her world. The world where breath mattered, where heartbeat mattered, where a millimeter of pressure on a trigger could change everything. She scanned the valley. Empty. Quiet. Too quiet. "Ghost, you got eyes," Webb's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Affirmative. Valley's clear. No movement." "Copy. Stay sharp." Hours passed. The sun climbed and the heat pressed down like a physical thing. Sweat ran down Maya's back. Her shoulders ached. Her eyes burned. She didn't move. Her father had taught her this. How to become stone. How to wait. You know the difference between a good sniper and a dead one baby girl. She'd been 16 lying in the dirt beside him, at a range in North Carolina, learning to shoot between heartbeats. No dad. What? A good sniper knows when to shoot. A great sniper knows when not to. I don't understand. You will. He'd adjusted her scope, his hands sure and gentle. Most people think sniping is about the shot. It's not. It's about patience. It's about waiting until the moment's right, even if that moment never comes. You understand? I think so. No, you don't. But you will. He'd looked at her then, and his eyes had been sad in a way she couldn't name. One day you're going to be in a situation where you've got one bullet and two targets, and you're going to have to choose. And whatever you choose, someone's going to die because of it. That's the job. How do you choose? You listen to your gut, you trust your training, and then you live with it. Maya had never forgotten that conversation, and she'd never understood it. Not until today. At 13:23 hours, Specialist Kim's voice came through the radio. "I got movement. Northeast ridge. 3 figures." Maya swung her scope. There, halfway up the far ridge, barely visible against the rocks. 3 men. Moving fast. Low to the ground. Carrying heavy packs. Her heart kicked once hard. "Ghost confirm contact," Webb said. Maya tracked them through her scope. They were climbing at an angle moving toward the squad's right flank. Not directly at them, not yet, but close enough. She watched them for 10 seconds. 15. 20. They stopped. One of them pulled out a radio, started talking. Maya felt ice slide down her spine. "Contact confirmed," she said into her mic. 3 military-age males, northeast ridge, 400 meters, carrying heavy packs, one with radio. There, the man with the radio pointed, directly at Alpha Squad's position. "They've got us," Maya said. "They know we're here." "How?" Webb's voice sharp. "I don't know, but they're—" The 3 men dropped their packs and started running. Not toward the squad, away from it. "They're running," Maya said. "Why are they—" And then she saw it. The packs, sitting on the ridge, wired. "IED!" she screamed into the radio. "It's an IED move! Move!" The world ended. Not the whole world, just hers. The ridge erupted in a column of fire and smoke that rose like a fist punching through the sky. The sound hit her a half-second later, a physical wall of pressure that felt like being slapped by God. The ground beneath her feet shook. Rocks tumbled. Dust exploded into the air. And then the second explosion hit. Bigger this time. Closer. The mountain screamed. Maya tried to move, tried to run, tried to do anything, but the world tilted sideways, and she was flying, weightless, suspended in a moment of perfect clarity where she could see everything, the smoke, the fire, the way the rocks tumbled through the air like toys. Then she hit the ground. Hard. Her head cracked against stone, and everything went white, then gray, then black around the edges. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't hear anything except a high-pitched ringing that drowned out the universe. "Move," she told herself. "Get up. Move." Her body didn't listen. She lay there, tasting blood and dirt, feeling the heat from the fire on her face. Get up. She rolled onto her side, coughing, choking, and that's when she saw it. The ridgeline where Alpha Squad had been. Gone. Just gone. In its place, a crater. Smoke pouring out like the earth was bleeding. Twisted metal. Burning fabric. And bodies. No. The word came out as a whisper. She tried to stand. Fell. Tried again. Her legs shook but held. Her helmet was gone. Her rifle was 10 feet away, half buried in rubble. Blood ran down her face from a gash in her scalp she didn't remember getting. She stumbled toward the crater, slipping on loose rock. "Webb." No answer. Hernandez. Nothing. Reeves. Silence. She reached the edge and looked down into hell. Fire. Metal. Rock. And pieces of people who used to be her squad. Johnson's arm still in its sleeve. Torres's medical bag torn open, supplies scattered. Kim's rifle bent at an impossible angle. And something that might have been Owen's, but she couldn't look long enough to be sure. Maya's stomach lurched. She turned away and vomited into the dirt. They're dead. All of them. Everyone. She sat down hard, her back against a rock, and stared at nothing. This was her fault. She'd seen them. She'd called it. But not fast enough. Not fast enough. 43 days, she thought. Reeves had 43 days left. He had a daughter. Amelia Grace. She'd never know him. Maya closed her eyes and wanted to die. Then she heard it. Faint, almost lost in the ringing in her ears. 3 short bursts, a whistle. Emergency signal. Her eyes snapped open. She scrambled for her rifle. pulled it close, wiped the blood from her eyes, and looked through the scope. There, 200 meters down the slope, in a secondary crater movement, 4 figures, huddled together, one waving. Webb, Torres, Kim, Malik, alive, surrounded. Maya counted the enemy fighters closing in. 15, 20, more coming. Her radio was dead. She tried it anyway. Alpha 1, this is Ghost 4 survivors at grid November 7-3. Taking fire, need immediate extraction. Static. Command, this is Ghost. Do you copy? Nothing. She was alone. The survivors didn't have 5 minutes. Maya looked at her rifle, looked at the valley, did the math. 17 rounds. At least 30 fighters. Extraction, if it was coming, was an hour away. Minimum. She could run, disappear into the mountains, save herself, tell command what happened. Maybe they'd send help. Maybe. Or she could stay, her father's voice clear as crystal. A sniper's job isn't to survive, baby girl. It's to make sure someone else does. Maya took a breath, then another. Then she slung her rifle over her shoulder, grabbed her pack, and started moving. Not down toward the survivors. Up, higher into the mountains, away from the fight. Because Maya wasn't running. She was hunting. And somewhere in those mountains she was going to find the one position where 17 bullets could change everything. 17 rounds, 30 men, she whispered to her father's ghost. Hope you taught me enough. The mountain didn't answer, but the rifle in her hands felt steady. And for Maya Carter, that was enough. Maya's legs burned as she climbed higher into the mountains, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Every second she wasted was another second Webb and the others didn't have. The slope was steep, almost vertical in places, and the rocks shifted under her boots. Twice, she nearly fell. Both times she caught herself fingers digging into stone rifle, banging against her back. Her head throbbed where she'd hit it. Blood had dried in a crust down the side of her face. Her vision swam at the edges, but she blinked it away and kept climbing. 300 meters up. 400. 5. She could hear gunfire below now. Sporadic at first, then constant. The enemy was closing in on the survivors. Faster, she told herself. Move faster. But her body was hitting its limit. 7 months in country, and she was in the best shape of her life. But this wasn't about fitness. This was about altitude and adrenaline and the fact that she'd just survived an explosion that should have killed her. Her father's voice cut through the pain. Your body will quit 100 times before you actually die, baby girl. The trick is not listening to it. She'd been 17 running intervals in the North Carolina heat, ready to puke. I can't, she'd gasped. Yes, you can. Dad, I'm serious. I'm gonna throw up. So throw up, then keep running. She'd stopped bent over hands on her knees. Her father had walked over, crouched down to her level. His face had been hard, but not unkind. You think the enemy's gonna wait for you to catch your breath? You think they're gonna give you a break because you're tired? He'd grabbed her chin, forced her to look at him. The only difference between coming home and coming home in a box is whether you quit or you don't. That's it. That's the whole game. What if I can't do it? Then you die. Simple as that. He'd stood up, started jogging again. Maya had thrown up in the grass, then followed him. She'd run another 6 miles that day. Now, 15 years later, and half a world away, she was still running. 600 meters up the slope. 700. The gunfire below was getting louder, more urgent. She found a ledge, pulled herself up, and stopped to catch her breath. Her hands were shaking. Her mouth was desert dry. She pulled out her water bottle, took one sip, forced herself to stop. Ration everything. Water. Energy. Ammunition. 17 rounds to save 4 lives. She looked through her scope, down at the valley. The survivors were still in the crater, pinned down. She could see muzzle flashes from the enemy positions. They were methodical, taking their time, tightening the noose. They knew extraction would come eventually. They were just making sure there'd be nobody left to extract. Maya counted again. 23 enemy fighters visible. Probably more she couldn't see. She needed higher ground. Needed the angle. Needed to see everything at once. She kept climbing, 800 meters, 900. Her lungs screamed, her legs felt like concrete. But she didn't stop. At 1,000 meters elevation above the valley floor, she found it. A shelf of rock jutting out from the mountainside. Flat, stable, protected by boulders on 3 sides. And most importantly, line of sight to the entire battlefield. Perfect. She dropped her pack, pulled out her shooting mat, and set up fast. Bipod locked, scope dialed, rangefinder ready. Then she looked through her scope and felt her stomach drop. The survivors weren't in the crater anymore. They'd moved, or been forced to move. She scanned left, right, swept the entire area. There, 300 meters northwest of the original position. 4 figures scrambling over rocks trying to reach better cover. And the enemy was everywhere. Not 23 fighters. 40. Maybe more. They were swarming like ants, moving in teams, coordinated, professional. This wasn't random Taliban. This was trained. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. 17 rounds, 40 targets. The math didn't work. She keyed her radio one more time, knowing it was dead, but trying anyway. Any station, this is Ghost Troops in contact grid, November 7-3. 4 survivors, approximately 40 enemy need immediate air support. How copy? Static. Dead air. Nothing. She was on her own. Maya closed her eyes for 5 seconds, forced her breathing to slow, forced her heart to calm. When she opened her eyes again, the world had narrowed to a single point of absolute clarity. She wasn't Maya Carter anymore, wasn't Staff Sergeant, wasn't the girl who didn't belong. She was Ghost, and Ghost didn't miss. She acquired her first target. Enemy fighter 400 meters moving between rocks, AK-47 raised, closing on Webb's position. Easy shot, almost too easy. Her finger settled on the trigger. Exhaled halfway. Wait, her father's voice. She hesitated. What are you doing, baby girl? Saving them, she whispered. Wrong. You're about to give away your position for 1 kill. Then what? Then I shoot again. And they'll see your muzzle flash. They'll see the dust kick. They'll triangulate your position and put 300 rounds into that shelf you're sitting on. You'll be dead in 60 seconds, and so will your squad. Maya's finger eased off the trigger. So what do I do? You wait, you watch. You find the one target that changes the whole game. Who? You tell me. Maya scanned the battlefield through her scope. 40 fighters. 4 survivors. Chaos everywhere. Then she saw him. High on the eastern ridge 500 meters out. One man standing still while everyone else moved. Radio in one hand, binoculars in the other. Pointing, directing. The commander. He was running the whole show, coordinating the assault. Every team moved when he told them to move. Every push came from him. Take him out, the whole thing falls apart. Maya centered her crosshairs on his chest. 512 meters, slight uphill angle, wind coming from the west at maybe 8 kilometers per hour, temperature dropping as the sun moved. She adjusted, breathed, waited for her heartbeat to slow. Squeezed. The rifle kicked. The suppressor muffled most of the sound, reducing it to a sharp crack that echoed off the rocks and disappeared. Through her scope, she watched the commander drop like someone had cut his strings. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the entire enemy force stopped moving. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Fighters looked around, trying to figure out where the shot came from. Some hit the ground. Some raised their weapons. Some just stood there frozen. The assault stalled. Webb and the others used the moment. They moved fast, scrambling toward a cluster of boulders that would give them better cover. Maya didn't celebrate. Didn't feel anything. Just worked the bolt, chambered another round, and found her next target. A fighter was pointing up toward the mountains, shouting, trying to rally the others, trying to take command. She put a round through his chest. He fell. 16 rounds left. Now the enemy knew someone was up here. They started moving differently, staying low, using cover. The element of surprise was gone, but the damage was done. Without their commander, they were fractured. Some groups pushed forward, some pulled back. Nobody was coordinating. Maya exploited it. She moved from target to target with mechanical precision. Fighter trying to flank left down. Fighter setting up a machine gun down. Fighter with an RPG down. 13 rounds left. The survivors reached the boulder cluster and dug in. Torres was working on someone looked like Malik was hit. Webb was on his radio, probably screaming for extraction that wasn't coming. Kim was shooting back, trying to suppress the enemy advance. It wasn't enough. The enemy regrouped, started pushing again. Harder this time, angrier. Maya shifted targets, prioritized threats. Anyone with explosives. Anyone with a machine gun. Anyone stupid enough to stand up. 10 rounds left. The sun was dropping toward the horizon. In another hour, it would be dark. If extraction didn't come before, then the survivors wouldn't make it through the night. Maya checked her watch. 16:47 hours. They'd been hit almost 3 hours ago. Where the hell was air support? A movement caught her eye. High on the western ridge. Another figure. Another commander, maybe, or a spotter. No, not a commander. A sniper. She could tell by the way he moved, the way he positioned himself, the way he settled into his rifle. He was hunting her squad. Maya watched him through her scope. He was good, found solid cover, set up professionally, scanned the battlefield. Then his rifle swung toward the boulder cluster where Webb and the others were hiding. He was lining up a shot. Maya didn't think, just moved. Swung her rifle toward him. The rangefinder said 2,100 meters. Long shot, very long, but doable. Wind was tricky at this distance. The bullet would drop nearly 3 meters, and she'd have maybe 2 seconds before he fired. She adjusted. Elevated. Held for wind. Her crosshairs settled on his head. She fired. The bullet took almost 3 seconds to arrive. She watched through her scope as it hit not his head, but his shoulder. He spun backward, his rifle falling from his hands. Not a kill, but he was out of the fight. 9 rounds left. But now the enemy knew exactly where she was. Gunfire erupted from below, stitching up the mountainside toward her position. Rounds ricocheted off the rocks around her, Dust and stone chips exploded in the air. Maya rolled left behind the boulder and waited for the barrage to stop. Her ears rang. Her hands were steady. Her heart was a metronome. This was what her father had trained her for. Not the shooting. The waiting. The patience to let the enemy waste ammunition while you conserved yours. The gunfire slowed. Stopped. She rolled back to her shooting position. Found a new target. Fired. 8 rounds. Another target. Fired. 7 rounds. She was a machine now. No fear. No doubt. Just the scope and the trigger and the mathematics of death. But she was running out of bullets, and the enemy was still coming. Webb's voice crackled in her ear, faint, broken. But there. Ghost, you, there. Her radio was working again. Barely. I'm here, she said. Where, hell, you, high ground. I've got overwatch. We're pinned. Malik's hit bad. Torres says, won't make it. Extraction's coming, but 40 minutes out? Can you hold them? Maya looked at her ammunition. 7 rounds. Looked at the enemy. Still 30 fighters, maybe more. She keyed her mic. I can hold them. How many rounds? You have... She didn't answer. Ghost. How many? Enough. A pause. Then Webb's voice quiet. You're lying. Yeah, another pause. Don't die up there, Carter. Not planning on it. That's what Reeves said. The words hit her like a punch. She thought about Reeves. About the photo of his daughter. About 43 days. Captain, she said. Tell me something. What? Did he ever meet her? Did Reeves ever see his daughter, static? Then, no. Maya closed her eyes for 1 second. Opened them. Then we're getting you out, all of you. Tell Torres to keep Malik alive. Tell Kim to conserve ammo. Tell everyone to stay down and stay ready. Ready for what? For me to change the game. She switched off her radio before he could respond. 7 rounds, 30 targets, 40 minutes until extraction. The math still didn't work, unless she changed the math. Maya scanned the battlefield one more time. Not looking at fighters, looking at terrain, at positions, at patterns. The enemy was smart. They were using a classic hammer and anvil tactic. One group pinning the survivors in place, while another group maneuvered to flank. If the flanking group succeeded, the survivors would be caught in a crossfire. Game over. Maya found the flanking group. 8 fighters moving through a narrow ravine on the south side of the valley. They thought they were hidden. They were wrong. She watched them funnel into the ravine, single file, heads down, and she saw her opportunity. At the end of the ravine was a rock formation. Unstable. Tons of loose stone balanced on a crumbling ledge. One shot. Right spot. Whole thing comes down. She ranged it, 1,400 meters. Slight downhill angle. Her crosshairs settled on a keystone rock at the base of the formation. This was the kind of shot you took in movies, the kind that didn't work in real life, except her father had taught her to make impossible shots. Sometimes you don't shoot the target, baby girl. You shoot the world around it. She exhaled. Squeezed. The rifle kicked. The bullet hit the keystone rock and punched through. For a moment, nothing happened. Then physics took over. The rock formation shifted, groaned, collapsed. Tons of stone roared down into the ravine like an avalanche. The 8 fighters didn't even have time to scream. When the dust cleared, the ravine was gone, buried under a mountain of rubble. 6 rounds left. The enemy assault faltered again. Morale was breaking. They'd lost their commander, their sniper, their flanking team, and they still couldn't find the person killing them. Some started to pull back. Others held position, but stopped advancing. Maya saw her moment. She keyed her radio. "Captain, they're breaking. When I say run, you run. Straight north, there's a dry riverbed 300 meters out. Get there and dig in. Extraction can pick you up from there. What about you? I'll cover. Ghost, when I say run, you run. Understood?" A pause. Understood. Maya found 3 more targets. 3 fighters who were still organized, still commanding their groups, still holding the assault together. She took them down in 15 seconds. 3 rounds left. "Run!" she shouted into her mic. "Now!" Webb and the others burst from cover. Kim was half carrying Malik. Torres had his rifle up firing as he moved. Webb brought up the rear. The enemy saw them. Opened fire. Bullets kicked up dirt around the survivors' feet. Maya shifted targets. Anyone shooting at her squad died. Simple as that. 2 rounds left. The survivors were halfway to the riverbed when Maya saw him. 1 more enemy fighter, positioned high, with an RPG on his shoulder, aiming at the running soldiers, range 3,100 meters, nearly 2 miles. Wind was gusting. Sun was low. Visibility was deteriorating. The shot was impossible. Maya didn't care. She adjusted, elevated, held for wind, held for the Earth's rotation, held for temperature, held for air pressure. Her crosshairs settled on the man's center mass. She thought about Reeves, about Amelia Grace, about a baby girl who would never know her father. Not because of Maya. Not today. She fired. The bullet flew. Seconds stretched into years. The fighter with the RPG jerked backward, the launcher falling from his hands. The rocket fired wild, spiraling into the sky, exploding harmlessly against the mountainside. 1 round left. The survivors reached the riverbed and disappeared into cover. Safe. For now. Maya slumped behind her rifle. Her hands were shaking. Her vision was blurry. She hadn't eaten or drunk water in hours. Her body was shutting down. But they were alive. Webb, Torres, Kim, Malik. 4 men who would go home because she hadn't. Her radio crackled. "Ghost, you still there? Still here. Extraction inbound. 20 minutes. Can you make it to the riverbed?" Maya looked at the distance, looked at her legs, looked at the enemy fighters who were regrouping below. "Negative. I'm too exposed. I move now, they'll see me." "Then stay put. We'll tell the helo to pick you up on the way out." "Roger." "Ghost?" "Yeah." Webb's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "That shot, the RPG. How far was that?" 3,100 meters. Silence on the radio. "Then, that's not possible." "Yeah, well, tell that to the guy I just shot." A sound that might have been a laugh. "You just made history, Carter." "I just did my job." "No, you did something else. Something I've never seen." A pause. "Thank you." Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. She watched the sun drop toward the horizon, watched the shadows grow long, watched the enemy finally retreat. They'd lost too many, taken too much punishment from a ghost they couldn't find. When the valley was empty, Maya allowed herself to breathe. 1 round left. She hoped she wouldn't need it. 20 minutes later, she heard the rotors. The most beautiful sound in the world. The Black Hawk came in low and fast, dust exploding in its wake. It touched down in the riverbed for maybe 15 seconds. The survivors piled in. Then it lifted off, banked hard, and headed for Maya's position. It hovered above the shelf of rock. A crew chief leaned out, threw down a rope. Maya grabbed it, clipped in, gave a thumbs up. They hauled her into the sky. When she was inside, sitting on the floor of the helo, shaking with adrenaline and exhaustion, Webb crawled over to her. He didn't say anything, just put his hand on her shoulder and squeezed. Maya looked at the others. Torres was working on Malik, who was pale but breathing. Kim was slumped against the wall, eyes closed. All of them covered in blood and dust and the evidence of a day that should have killed them. But didn't, because Ghost had been watching. Webb leaned close so she could hear him over the rotors. "How many did you take?" Maya thought about it, counted in her head. 17ths. 17 confirmed kills, 17 rounds, 17 kills, plus the avalanche. Webb stared at her. "You didn't miss. Not once." "No, sir. Not once in 17 shots over 3 hours across distances up to 3,000 meters. No, sir." He shook his head slowly. "Who the hell are you, Carter?" Maya looked out the open door at the mountains falling away below, at the valley where 8 men had died and 4 had lived. "I'm my father's daughter," she said quietly. Webb squeezed her shoulder again. Then he moved back to help Torres. Maya sat there, rifle across her lap, 1 round left in the chamber, and let herself feel it. All of it. The fear, the exhaustion, the grief, the impossible weight of being the one who survived. And somewhere in the noise of the rotors and the wind, she heard her father's voice one last time. "You did good, baby girl. You did real good." She closed her eyes and let the tears come, because she'd saved them. She'd saved 4 lives with 17 bullets and a mountain of determination. But she'd also lost 8, and that was a math that would never balance, no matter how far the bullet flew. The Black Hawk touched down at Forward Operating Base Sharana at 1842 hours, and Maya didn't remember climbing out. She didn't remember walking across the tarmac, or the medics checking her vitals, or someone wrapping a blanket around her shoulders even though it was 90 degrees. She remembered Webb saying something to her. Remembered his face, serious and exhausted. But the words were gone, lost in the ringing that still filled her ears. Someone led her to a tent, sat her down, put water in her hands. She drank without tasting it. Her rifle was gone. Someone had taken it. That thought cut through the fog. Where was her rifle? She stood up too fast, and the world tilted. "Whoa, easy." Hands on her shoulders, pushing her back down. A medic, young guy, baby-faced. "You've got a concussion. You need to sit." "My rifle. It's being taken care of." "I need it." "Staff Sergeant, you need to sit down before you fall down." Maya sat, not because he told her to, but because her legs gave out. The medic shined a light in her eyes, asked her questions. What day was it? Who was the president? How many fingers was he holding up? She answered mechanically, but her mind was somewhere else. On that mountain. In that scope. Watching Reeves's smile when he showed her the photo of his daughter. 43 days. He'd had 43 days left. "Staff Sergeant." The medic was staring at her. "Did you hear me?" "No." "I said you're in shock. That's normal after what you went through. We're going to keep you overnight for observation." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You survived an IED blast at close range. You have a concussion, lacerations, possible internal injuries. You need rest." "I need to debrief." "That can wait." "No, it can't." Maya stood again, steadier this time. "Where's Captain Webb?" "Command tent, but Staff Sergeant..." Maya walked out before he could finish. The base was organized chaos. Soldiers moving equipment, helicopters taking off and landing, someone shouting orders. The sun was almost down now, painting everything in orange and shadow. She found the command tent by following the voices, pulled back the flap, and stepped inside. Webb was there, standing in front of a table covered in maps. So was Major Patricia Keene, the base commander, a woman in her 50s, with iron-gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. 3 other officers Maya didn't recognize. All of them turned when she entered. "Staff Sergeant Carter," Major Keene said. Her voice was calm, measured, the kind of calm that meant she was furious about something. "You should be with the medics." "I'm fine, ma'am." "You have blood all over your face." Maya reached up, touched her temple. Her fingers came away red. She'd forgotten about the gash. "It's not mine." That was a lie. It was definitely hers. But it sounded better than admitting she couldn't remember getting it. Major Keene studied her for a long moment. "Captain Webb was just briefing me on today's events." "Sit down." Maya sat. Her legs were grateful. Webb cleared his throat. "We were hit at approximately 1,347 hours. IED double tap. Initial blast took out the primary observation post. Secondary blast collapsed the ridge. 8 KIA immediate." Keene's expression didn't change. "Names: Sergeant First Class Hernandez, Corporal Reeves, Specialist Johnson, Private First Class Owens, and 4 others we haven't recovered yet." 4 others. Like they were numbers. Like they weren't people who'd eaten breakfast that morning and joked about going home. "Survivors?" Keene asked. 4. Myself, Specialist, Kim Private First Class, Torres Private First Class, Malik. Malik took shrapnel to the abdomen. Torres patched him up. He'll live. How did you survive? Webb glanced at Maya. Staff Sergeant Carter provided overwatch from an elevated position. When we were pinned down, she engaged the enemy from approximately 1,000 meters elevation. How many enemy combatants? Intelligence estimates 40 to 50. One of the other officers, a colonel Maya didn't recognize, leaned forward. Captain, you're telling me one sniper held off an enemy force of 50 for 3 hours? Yes, sir. That's not possible. It happened. The colonel looked at Maya. Staff Sergeant, what's your ammunition count? 17 rounds fired, 17 confirmed kills, plus approximately 8 casualties from a rock slide I triggered. The tent went quiet. The colonel blinked. You fired 17 rounds over 3 hours and didn't miss once. No, sir. Not even once. No, sir. He looked at Webb. Is she in shock? Is she? She's not in shock, Webb said flatly. I watched her work. She took out their commander at 500 meters, took out their sniper at over 2,000, triggered an avalanche that buried their flanking team. And then... He paused, and something like awe crept into his voice. And then she made a shot at 3,100 meters to take out an RPG gunner who had us dead to rights. Major Keene leaned back in her chair. 3,100 meters. Yes, ma'am. That's nearly 2 miles. Yes, ma'am. The current record for longest confirmed kill is 2,400 meters. British sniper, Afghanistan, 2009. I'm aware, ma'am. Keene looked at Maya. Really looked at her, like she was seeing her for the first time. Staff Sergeant Carter, did you make a shot at 3,100 meters? Maya met her eyes. Yes, ma'am. With what rifle? M2010, ma'am. 300 Winchester Magnum. That rifle's effective range is 1,200 meters. Yes, ma'am. So you made a shot at more than double your rifle's effective range in combat conditions under fire and hit a moving target. He wasn't moving, ma'am. He was stationary aiming an RPG. Keene stared at her. How? Maya didn't know how to answer that. How did you explain something that was equal parts training, instinct, desperation, and her father's ghost whispering calculations in her ear? I did the math, ma'am. The math? Yes, ma'am. Wind, elevation, temperature, distance, bullet drop, Coriolis effect. I did the math and took the shot. The colonel shook his head. No one can calculate all of that in combat, not in the time you had. My father could. The words came out before Maya could stop them. The tent went quiet again. Keen's expression softened just slightly. Your father was Master Sergeant David Carter, long shot. Yes, ma'am. I served with him, briefly, in Iraq, 2007. Keen leaned forward, elbows on the table. He was the best sniper I ever saw. Made shots that shouldn't have been possible, saved my squad twice. She paused. He trained you? Yes, ma'am. How old were you when he died? 19, ma'am. Keen nodded slowly, like something was clicking into place. And you joined up to finish what he started? Maya didn't answer. Didn't need to. The major stood, walked around the table, and stopped in front of Maya. Staff Sergeant, what you did today was extraordinary. You saved 4 lives against impossible odds. The Army will want to recognize that. I don't need recognition, ma'am. I need to go back out there. Back where? To the valley, to recover the bodies. That's not your job. They were my squad. And they're gone. Recovery teams will handle it when the area is secure. Keen's voice was firm but not unkind. Your job right now is to heal. Get checked out by medical. Write your after-action report. Let us handle the rest. Maya wanted to argue. Wanted to tell the major that she couldn't just sit in a tent while Reeves and Hernandez and the others were still out there exposed to the elements waiting to come home. But she was so tired. Bone tired. Soul tired. Yes, ma'am. Keen put a hand on Maya's shoulder. You did good work today, Carter. Your father would be proud. Maya nodded because she didn't trust herself to speak. Webb walked her out of the command tent. They stood there in the twilight, neither saying anything for a long moment. Finally, Webb broke the silence. You saved my life today. Just doing my job. No, you did more than that. He turned to face her. I've been in the Army for 12 years. I've served with some of the best soldiers in the world. But I've never seen anything like what you did on that mountain. Maya didn't know what to say to that. Reeves talked about you, you know, Webb continued. Before today. Said you were the best shot he'd ever seen. Said you were wasted on recon. He smiled, sad and tired. He was right. The mention of Reeves hit Maya like a physical blow. He showed me the photo. Of his daughter. I know. 43 days. He had 43 days left. I know. I should have seen them sooner. The fighters with the IED. I should have... Stop. Webb's voice was sharp. You did see them. You called it. We just didn't move fast enough. That's on me, not you. But, Carter, listen to me. You cannot carry this. You did everything right. Everything. And because of that, 4 of us are alive. That's what matters. 8 of us are dead. I know. And that's going to hurt for a long time, maybe forever. But you don't get to take responsibility for that. You weren't the one who planted the IED. You weren't the one who detonated it. You were the one who kept the rest of us alive after. He paused. Don't dishonor what you did by turning it into guilt. Maya looked away. Across the base. At the mountains in the distance, already dark against the dying light. I keep hearing them, she said quietly. Reeves laughing, Johnson snoring, Hernandez giving orders, like they're still here. They are still here. That's how it works. Webb touched his chest. They'll be here until we're not. That's the deal. Maya nodded. Her throat was tight. Get some rest, Webb said. Medical will want to check you again in the morning. After that, you'll write your report. Then we'll figure out what comes next. What does come next? I don't know. But I can tell you this, what you did today, word's going to spread. People are going to want to talk to you. Press, probably. Maybe some brass from Bagram or even stateside. You just made history, Carter, whether you wanted to or not. Maya didn't want history. She wanted her squad back. But that wasn't how it worked. Webb squeezed her shoulder once, then walked away. Maya stood there alone, feeling the weight of the day settle onto her shoulders like a physical thing. She thought about walking back to her bunk, thought about lying down and closing her eyes and pretending this was all a nightmare she'd wake up from. Instead, she walked to the armory. The armorer on duty was Specialist Chen, a kid from California with thick glasses and hands that smelled like gun oil. "Staff Sergeant," he said when Maya walked in. "You looking for your rifle?" "Yeah." "It's in the back. I was just cleaning it." He disappeared into the storage area and came back with her M2010. Set it on the counter gently like it was made of glass. Maya picked it up, felt the weight, ran her hands over the stock. 17 shots, 17 lives ended, 4 lives saved. "I heard what you did today," Chen said quietly. "Everyone's talking about it. They're saying you made the longest shot in combat history." "Maybe. Not maybe, definitely." He adjusted his glasses. "You know how many snipers dream of making a shot like that, and you did it under fire with no spotter with a rifle that technically shouldn't even be able to reach that far." Maya didn't respond, just kept running her hands over the rifle. "Can I ask you something?" Chen said. "Sure." "How'd it feel making that shot? The 3,000-meter one?" Maya thought about it. Thought about the moment she'd squeezed the trigger. The 3 seconds of flight time. The way the world had narrowed to just her, the rifle, and the target. "Lonely," she said finally. Chen blinked. "Lonely? Yeah. When you're that far away, when the target's that small, it's just you. Nobody can help you. Nobody can tell you if you're right or wrong. You just have to trust yourself and hope you did the math right." She looked up at him. "And then you watch someone die because you decided they should. That's lonely." Chen didn't say anything for a moment. Then, quietly, "I never thought about it like that." Most people don't. Maya signed the paperwork to reclaim her rifle and walked out into the night. The base was quieter now. Most of the soldiers had gone to chow or were bunking down for the night. She found a spot near the perimeter, away from the lights and noise, and sat down with her back against a concrete barrier. She field-stripped the rifle. Not because it needed it, Chen had already cleaned it, but because her hands needed something to do. Bolt. Chamber. Trigger assembly. Stock. Each piece came apart in her hands like an old prayer. Her father had taught her this when she was 15. Made her do it blindfolded until she could reassemble the rifle in under 3 minutes in complete darkness. "Why?" she'd asked. "Because one day you might need to. And if that day comes, you won't have time to think about it. Your hands will just know." How will they know? Repetition. Muscle memory. The same way you know how to tie your shoes without looking. He'd watched her fumble with the bolt in the darkness. "The rifle is an extension of you, baby girl. It's not a tool. It's part of your body. The better you know it, the better you'll shoot." She'd gotten good at it, could strip and reassemble any rifle in under 2 minutes. Now eyes closed in the rain, under fire, didn't matter. But that wasn't why she was doing it tonight. Tonight she was doing it because it was familiar, because it was something she could control when everything else felt like chaos. She was halfway through reassembly when she heard footsteps. Torres sat down beside her without asking. His face was drawn, exhausted. Blood on his uniform. Malik's blood, probably. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Maya kept working on her rifle. Torres just stared out at the darkness. Finally, he spoke. Malik's gonna make it. Medic said if I'd been 30 seconds slower on the tourniquet, he would have bled out. But he's stable now. That's good. Yeah. Torres rubbed his face with both hands. I keep thinking about the others. Johnson, Reeves, Hernandez. I keep thinking maybe if I'd been faster, if I'd been better. You did everything right. So did you. But they're still dead. Maya didn't have an answer for that. You saved us, Torres said quietly. I don't know if anyone's told you that yet, but you did. Kim and I, we were ready to die. We'd made peace with it. And then you started shooting, and suddenly the enemy was dropping, and we had a chance. He looked at her. How many did you take? 17. 17? Jesus! He shook his head. I've been a medic for 6 years. I've seen a lot of crazy things, but I've never seen anything like what you did. It was like having an angel on that mountain, like God himself was covering us. I'm not an angel. Maybe not, but you were close enough. Torres stood up, wincing. His ribs were probably bruised from the blast. Get some sleep, Ghost. You earned it. He walked away, and Maya was alone again. She finished reassembling her rifle, held it in her hands, felt its weight. 17 shots, 4 lives saved, 8 lives lost. The math didn't balance. It never would. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was that she'd tried. That when the world went to hell and everyone else died, she'd climbed a mountain and fought back with everything she had. Maybe that was enough. It had to be enough, because it was all she had. Maya shouldered her rifle and walked back to her tent. The night was cold now, the Afghan cold that cut through your clothes and settled into your bones. But she didn't feel it. She was thinking about tomorrow. About the after-action report she'd have to write. About the questions people would ask. About the attention Webb had warned her about. She was thinking about how to explain that 3,000-meter shot to people who'd never taken one. She was thinking about Reeves's daughter growing up without a father, and whether anyone would tell her that her dad died brave. She was thinking about her own father, and whether he'd really be proud, or whether he'd tell her she should have been faster, should have seen the IED sooner, should have saved all of them instead of just 4. But most of all, she was thinking about what Webb had said. Don't dishonor what you did by turning it into guilt. She'd saved 4 lives today. Against impossible odds, with 17 bullets and a mountain of determination, she'd kept 4 men breathing who shouldn't have been. That was worth something. That was worth everything. Maya reached her tent, pushed through the flap, and found her cot. She didn't bother taking off her boots, just lay down rifle beside her and stared at the canvas ceiling. Sleep didn't come. She knew it wouldn't. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the crash that always followed combat. Her body was exhausted, but her mind was racing, replaying the day in fragments. The explosion, the crater, Reeves's smile, the commander falling, the avalanche, the 3,000-meter shot that changed everything. She closed her eyes and let it wash over her. Tomorrow would bring questions, attention, maybe recognition she didn't want, but tonight, in the darkness of a tent on a forward operating base in Afghanistan, Maya Carter allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Not in the killing. Never in that. But in the fact that when everyone else had died and the world had collapsed into fire and chaos, she hadn't run. She'd climbed higher. She'd fought back. And she'd won. Ghost stayed, she thought. And Ghost didn't miss. Her father's voice came one last time, soft and proud. "That's my girl." Maya smiled in the darkness. And finally, impossibly, she slept. Maya woke to someone shaking her shoulder and realized she'd been dreaming about the mountain. In the dream, she'd taken the shot at 3,000 meters, but missed, and she watched the RPG spiral toward Webb, and the others watched the explosion, watched them disappear. Then she woke up, gasping. "Easy, Staff Sergeant, easy!" The medic from yesterday, the baby-faced one, was standing over her. "You were shouting. Thought you might be having a seizure." Maya sat up, heart hammering. Sweat soaked through her uniform. "What time is it?" 0630. "Major Keene wants to see you at 0800. But first I need to check your head." She let him examine her. He shined lights in her eyes, asked her questions, poked at the stitches someone had apparently put in her scalp while she slept. She didn't remember that either. "Concussion's still there," he said. "You need rest, real rest, not whatever you were doing last night." "I slept." "You call that sleeping. You were yelling loud enough to wake half the base." He stepped back, crossed his arms. "Look, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but word came down from command. You're being pulled off active duty for 72 hours minimum. Medical observation." "I don't need observation." "Yeah, well, that's not your call." He softened slightly. "Staff Sergeant, you survived an IED blast yesterday. You have a concussion, multiple lacerations, and you're probably dealing with some serious psychological trauma, whether you admit it or not. Give yourself time to heal." Maya wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him she was fine, that she needed to get back out there, that sitting around doing nothing would drive her insane. But her body betrayed her. When she tried to stand, her legs shook. Her head throbbed. Her hands trembled. 72 hours, the medic said. "Then we'll reevaluate. In the meantime, eat something. Hydrate. Try to rest. Doctor's orders." He left before she could protest. Maya sat on the edge of her cot, head in her hands, and tried to piece together what came next. Major Keene at 0800. Probably more debriefing. Probably questions about the shots, the distances, the mathematics of killing 40 men with 17 bullets. She stood slower this time and walked to the shower tent. The water was cold, but she didn't care. She stood under the spray and let it wash away the blood and dust and sweat, watching the water run red at her feet. When she closed her eyes, she saw the scope, saw the crosshairs settling on targets, saw them fall. 17 shots, 17 lives. She wondered if their families knew yet. Wondered if somewhere in Afghanistan or Pakistan women were crying over husbands who wouldn't come home. Children asking when Daddy would be back. She wondered if that made her a monster. Her father's voice cut through the doubt. "You don't get to feel guilty for surviving, baby girl. The enemy made their choice. You made yours. The only difference is you were better." But was being better enough? She finished her shower, dressed in a clean uniform someone had left for her, and walked to the mess tent. The sun was up now, burning away the cold, turning the base into a furnace. Inside, soldiers were eating breakfast. The normal morning chaos trays, clattering voices overlapping the smell of coffee and powdered eggs. Maya grabbed a tray and got in line. That's when she felt it. The change. Conversation stopped when she walked past. Soldiers turned to look at her. Not hostile, not angry, just watching. One soldier, a corporal she didn't know, nodded at her. Respectful, almost reverent. Maya got her food and found a table in the corner. She'd barely sat down when Specialist Kim appeared, tray in hand. "Mind if I sit?" "Go ahead." Kim sat. He looked better than yesterday, showered, shaved, rested. But his eyes were different. Older, somehow. They ate in silence for a minute. Then Kim said, "They're calling you the ghost of Hindu Kush." Maya looked up. "What? The ghost of Hindu Kush? Someone started it last night. Now everyone's saying it. The sniper who held off 50 fighters from a mountain. The woman who made the impossible shot." He took a bite of toast. "They're saying you're a legend." "I'm not a legend. I'm just a soldier who did her job." "Yeah, we'll tell that to the 50 guys spreading the story." Kim leaned forward. "Look, I know you don't want attention. I get it. But what you did yesterday, that's the kind of thing that changes how people see the war. Changes how they see women in combat. Changes everything." "I didn't do it to change anything. I did it to keep you alive." "I know. That's what makes it matter." Kim stood up. "Major Keen's gonna want to talk about it. Probably some brass from higher up, too. Just be ready." He walked away, leaving Maya alone with her eggs and her thoughts. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing, and tried to prepare herself for whatever came next. At 0800, she walked to the command tent. Major Keen was waiting along with 2 men Maya didn't recognize. One wore the insignia of a full colonel. The other was civilian suit and tie, completely out of place on a forward base. "Staff Sergeant Carter," Keen said. "This is Colonel Morrison from ISAF headquarters in Kabul, and this is Mr. David Chen from the Department of Defense." Maya saluted Morrison, nodded at Chen. "At ease," Morrison said. He was maybe 60, with white hair and a face full of old scars. "Sit down, Staff Sergeant." Maya sat. Morrison pulled out a folder, opened it. "I've been reading your after-action report. Captain Webb's too. And I've been looking at your service record." He glanced up. "Your father was David Carter, long shot." "Yes, sir." "I served with him briefly, Iraq 2006. He saved my platoon from an ambush, made 3 shots in under 10 seconds at ranges exceeding 800 meters. I recommended him for a Silver Star." Morrison closed the folder. "He was the best sniper I ever saw. Until yesterday." Maya didn't know how to respond to that. Chen spoke up. His voice was smooth, practiced. "Staff Sergeant, what you did yesterday was extraordinary. Unprecedented, actually. The Department of Defense has confirmed that your 3,100-meter shot is the longest confirmed kill in combat history, by a significant margin." "I was just doing my job, sir." "Your job was reconnaissance. What you did went far beyond that." Chen leaned forward. "You single-handedly neutralized a superior enemy force, saved 4 lives, and demonstrated a level of marksmanship that frankly shouldn't be possible. The Pentagon is very interested in how you did it." Something cold moved through Maya's stomach. How I did it. The mathematics. The technique. How you calculated wind distance elevation, all of it in real-time combat conditions. Chen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We'd like to study your methods, potentially develop training protocols based on your approach." "I don't have a method. I just shot." "Staff Sergeant, nobody just shoots at 3,000 meters. It requires knowing your rifle, knowing your ammunition, and trusting your training." Maya's voice was flat. "My father taught me. That's all." Morrison held up a hand. "Mr. Chen, give us a moment." Chen looked annoyed, but stood and walked out of the tent. When he was gone, Morrison turned to Maya. "Listen to me carefully, Carter. What happened yesterday is going to generate a lot of attention. Press, politicians, Pentagon analysts who want to pick your brain apart and figure out how to replicate what you did. Some of that attention will be genuine respect. Some of it will be people trying to use you for their own purposes." "I don't want attention, sir." "I know, but you're going to get it anyway." Morrison stood, walked to the tent entrance, looked out at the base. "Your father hated it too. The attention. Every time he made an impossible shot, the brass wanted to parade him around, put him in front of cameras, turn him into a recruiting poster. He refused every time. Said his job was to shoot, not to smile for pictures. He was right. Maybe. But the Army needs heroes, Carter. Especially now. The war's dragging on. Public support is dropping. Casualties are mounting. And then you come along and do something that reminds people why we're here. That reminds them what courage looks like. He turned back to face her. Whether you want it or not, you're going to be that hero. Maya felt trapped. What if I refuse? You can't refuse. Not completely. But you can control how much you give. Morrison sat back down. Here's what's going to happen. In the next few days, someone from public affairs is going to want to interview you. Take some photos. Maybe write a story for Stars and Stripes. You're going to cooperate with that. You're going to be professional. You're going to represent the Army well. Yes, sir. But after that, you're going to come work for me. Maya blinked. Sir, I'm putting together a specialized unit. Elite snipers. Deep reconnaissance. Surgical strikes. The kind of work your father excelled at. Morrison pulled out another folder. I'm offering you a transfer. You'd be attached to special operations. Better equipment. Better support. Better missions. And most importantly, less visibility. You'd be doing the work without the spotlight. It was everything Maya should want. Better missions, less attention. A chance to disappear into the shadows and do what she did best. But something made her hesitate. What about my current unit? What's left of it? Alpha Squad is being rotated home for reconstitution. They'll get new personnel, new leadership. Captain Webb is being reassigned to a staff position. You wouldn't be leaving anyone behind. When would this transfer happen? Immediately, pending your medical clearance. Maya thought about it. Thought about disappearing into special operations. Thought about becoming a ghost in truth, not just in name. Thought about her father and what he would do. Can I think about it, sir? Morrison smiled slightly. You can think about it for 72 hours. That's how long medical has you grounded. After that, I need an answer. He stood. Dismissed, Staff Sergeant. Maya saluted and walked out. The rest of the day blurred together. She wrote her official after-action report, every detail of the engagement, every shot, every decision. It took 3 hours and filled 12 pages. She didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't leave anything out. She wrote about seeing the fighters too late, about the explosion, about finding Webb and the others alive, and knowing she was the only thing standing between them and death. She wrote about the 3,000-meter shot, about how the math shouldn't have worked, about how she'd taken it anyway, because the alternative was watching 4 men die. She wrote about Reeves and his daughter, about how 43 days had become 0 days in the span of a heartbeat. When she finished, her hand was cramping and her eyes were burning. She submitted the report to Major Keene and walked out into the afternoon heat. That's when she saw them. 8 flag-draped transfer cases lined up on the tarmac. The remains of Alpha Squad recovered from the valley, waiting to go home. A small honor guard stood at attention. No ceremony yet? That would come later. But someone had placed them there, visible to everyone on base. Maya walked toward them. Her feet moved without permission. She stopped in front of the first case. Didn't know who was inside. Could have been Reeves. Could have been Hernandez. Could have been any of them. It didn't matter. She stood there at attention, rifle over her shoulder, and saluted. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Turned to see Captain Webb Specialist Kim and Torres. They'd come to pay respects, too. They stood in a line, 4 survivors facing 8 dead, and nobody said anything. Words weren't enough. After a long moment, Webb spoke quietly. "Reeves is in the second case," I asked. Maya shifted her eyes to the second case. Thought about a baby girl in Iowa who would grow up with only photos of her father. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be." Webb's voice was rough. "He died protecting something. That's more than most people get. He should have gone home. We all should have gone home, but we're here instead. That's the job." Webb turned to face her. "Colonel Morrison offered you a transfer, didn't he?" Maya nodded. "Are you taking it?" "I don't know." "You should." "Why? Because you're wasted on regular infantry. You're too good. You could do more somewhere else." "What if I want to stay?" Webb smiled sadly. "Then you're an idiot. But I'd be honored to serve with you." They stood there until the sun started to set, and someone came to tell them the memorial service would be tomorrow morning. Maya walked back to her tent. Her head still hurt, her body still ached, but her mind was clearer than it had been since the explosion. She sat on her cot and pulled out her phone. She'd been avoiding it, but she couldn't anymore. 47 messages, most from other soldiers on base. A few from friends stateside. One from her mother who she hadn't spoken to in 6 months. She opened that one first. "Maya, someone told me what happened. Are you okay? Please call me. Love, Mom." Maya stared at it. Her mother had never supported her joining the army, had cried at the airport when Maya left for basic training, had said she was throwing her life away chasing a dead man's shadow. Maybe she'd been right. Maya typed a response. "I'm okay. I'll call soon. Love you too." She sent it and moved to the next message. This one from Corporal Sarah Reeves, Danny's wife. Her thumb hovered over it for a long moment before she opened it. "Staff Sergeant Carter, this is Sarah Reeves. Captain Webb gave me your contact. I wanted to thank you for trying to save Danny. He wrote about you in his letters, said you were the best shot he'd ever seen, said he felt safer knowing you were watching over them. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful he had someone like you with him at the end. Please stay safe. Amelia and I are praying for you." Maya read it 3 times. Then she set the phone down and put her head in her hands. She didn't cry. Couldn't cry. The tears were locked somewhere deep where she couldn't reach them. Instead, she sat there feeling the weight of 8 bodies in flag-draped cases, feeling the weight of 17 bullets and 4 saved lives, feeling the weight of becoming something she'd never wanted to be. A legend. A hero. A ghost. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in her cot, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the base, thinking about Colonel Morrison's offer. Special operations. Elite missions. A chance to disappear. Everything she should want. But there was something else pulling at her. Something she couldn't name. A feeling that her father had left something unfinished, and she was the only one who could complete it. At 0400 hours, she got up and walked back to the tarmac. The transfer cases were still there, still waiting. She sat down on the concrete back against one of the cases and talked to them, to Reeves and Hernandez and Johnson and all the others whose names were written on tags she couldn't see. "I don't know what to do," she said quietly. "Morrison wants me to go special ops. Says I'll do more good there. Says I'll be away from the cameras and the attention. And maybe he's right. Maybe that's where I belong." The wind picked up hot and dry. "But you guys died on my watch. And I keep thinking if I'd been faster, if I'd seen them sooner, maybe you'd still be here. Maybe Reeves would meet his daughter. Maybe Hernandez would go home to his kids." She leaned her head back against the case. "Dad always said a sniper's job is to make one shot that changes everything. But what if that's not enough? What if one shot can't save everyone?" She sat there until the sun came up. And somewhere between the darkness and the dawn, She made her decision. At 0800 hours, she walked back to the command tent and found Colonel Morrison. "Sir, I have my answer." Morrison looked up from his maps. "And I'm staying with Alpha Squad, or whatever they reconstituted as." Morrison frowned. "Carter, I'm offering you—" "I know what you're offering, sir, and I appreciate it. But those men died on my watch. The ones who survived did because I was there. I need to see this through." "See what through? Whatever comes next." Maya stood at attention. "With respect, sir, I'm not ready to disappear yet. Maybe someday, but not today." Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Your father said something similar to me once. I offered him a transfer to special operations. He said no. Said his place was with the men he trained with, the men who trusted him. Said leaving them would be like abandoning family." "What did you tell him?" "I told him he was making a mistake, that he could do more good elsewhere." Morrison smiled grimly. "He told me I didn't understand loyalty. He was right. So you'll let me stay? I don't have a choice. You're not under my command yet." Morrison closed his folder. "But Carter understands something. What you did on that mountain is going to follow you. You're never going to be just another soldier again. People are going to expect things from you. Impossible things. Are you ready for that?" Maya thought about her father. About 247 confirmed kills. About a legend who died on a road because even legends bleed. "No, sir, but I'll do it anyway." Morrison saluted her. "Good luck, Staff Sergeant." Maya saluted back and walked out into the morning sun feeling lighter somehow, like she'd made the right choice even if it was the harder one. That afternoon they held the memorial service. The entire base turned out. 8 flag-draped cases. 8 rifles stuck bayonet first into the ground helmets balanced on top. 8 pairs of boots lined up in front. Major Keene spoke about sacrifice and duty. Captain Webb spoke about brotherhood and courage. Specialist Kim read names and hometowns and ages that were all too young. When it was over, Maya stood in front of Reeves's memorial. Someone had placed the photo there, the one of baby Amelia. It was cracked from being in his helmet, but you could still see her face. "I'm sorry I couldn't bring you home," Maya whispered. "But I promise you this, your daughter's going to know who you were. She's going to know you died brave, and she's going to know you had someone watching over you until the very end." She stood there until the sun started to set, and the base grew quiet. Then Maya Carter, the ghost of Hindu Kush, walked back to prepare for whatever came next. Because ghosts don't rest. They just keep moving forward. One impossible shot at a time. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of a classroom full of snipers at Fort Benning, Georgia, and realized her life had become something she didn't recognize. The room was silent. 32 soldiers, 31 men, and 1 woman besides Maya sat at attention waiting for her to speak. Behind her, a projection screen showed a satellite image of the Hindu Kush Valley, the place where everything changed. She'd been back stateside for 4 months now. After the memorial service, after the interviews with Stars and Stripes and Armed Forces Network, after the ceremony where some general she'd never met pinned a silver star on her chest, they'd rotated her home. Not for rest. For this. Teaching. The Army's newest chief instructor at Advanced Sniper School. First woman to hold the position. Youngest person ever selected. All because of 17 bullets and 1 impossible shot. She hated it. Not the teaching. The attention. The whispers in the hallway. The way officers she outranked treated her like she was made of glass and glory. The way junior enlisted soldiers looked at her like she was mythology instead of human. But she'd made a promise to herself on that tarmac in Afghanistan. She'd stay. She'd see it through. So here she was. 3,247 meters, she said to the class. Her voice was steady, practiced. She'd given this lecture 17 times now. That's the distance of the shot everyone wants to talk about. 2.01 miles. Double the effective range of my rifle. Triple the distance of most combat engagements. A hand went up. Staff Sergeant Marcus Devlin. 32, Marine sniper, 2 tours in Iraq. He'd been challenging her since day 1. Yes, Staff Sergeant, how'd you calculate windage at that distance? Standard doctrine says, standard doctrine doesn't account for desperation. Maya clicked to the next slide. It showed wind patterns, elevation data, temperature readings. I didn't have time for standard doctrine. I had maybe 10 seconds before that RPG gunner fired. So I did the math in my head, held for wind, prayed I was right, and squeezed the trigger. That's not a technique. That's luck. You're right. It was luck, about 30% luck. She met his eyes. The other 70% was training, repetition, muscle memory. Knowing my rifle so well that the calculations became instinct. That's what this course teaches. Not luck. Preparation that looks like luck when it matters. Devlin didn't look convinced, but he nodded and sat back. Maya clicked through more slides, showed them the battlefield layout, explained target priority, walked them through each of the 17 shots, the reasoning behind them, the mathematics that turned chaos into precision. She didn't tell them about the fear, about how her hands had shaken, about how she'd vomited after seeing the crater, about how she still woke up some nights hearing Reeves laugh or Hernandez giving orders. That wasn't part of the lesson plan. When the lecture ended, the students filed out. Devlin lingered. Staff Sergeant Carter. Maya looked up from gathering her notes. Yes. I didn't mean to challenge your competence. He paused, searching for words. I've been a sniper for 8 years, and what you described today, what you did in that valley, it shouldn't be possible. I'm trying to understand how it is. It's possible because it had to be. 4 men would have died if I missed, so I didn't miss. But how do you train for that? How do you prepare for a situation where everything you know says it can't be done, and you do it anyway? Maya thought about her father. About all those hours on the range shooting until her shoulder was bruised and her trigger finger cramped. About him saying over and over, "You don't rise to the occasion, baby girl. You fall to your training." You train until the impossible becomes routine, she said. You shoot in conditions that don't make sense. You calculate distances that seem absurd. You practice until your body knows what to do before your brain catches up. And then when the moment comes, you trust yourself. Devlin nodded slowly. Your father trained you? Yes. I read about him. Long shot. 247 confirmed kills. They say he was the best. He was. And now you've broken his record. Longest confirmed kill in history. That must feel like I failed. The words came out before Maya could stop them. Devlin blinked. Failed. He made 247 shots and came home every time. I made 17 and lost 8 men. So yeah, it feels like failure. She grabbed her notes and walked out before he could respond. The rest of the day passed in a blur. More classes, more questions, more students looking at her like she had answers she didn't have. At 1800 hours, she finally escaped to her office. It was small desk chair filing cabinet window overlooking the training ranges. On the wall behind her desk hung a framed photo of that burning valley with the inscription, 247 meters one shot, that changed everything. She stared at it every day and wondered if that was true. Had it changed everything, or had it just changed her? A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Captain Webb stepped through. He'd gotten a staff position at Fort Benning working in operations planning. They saw each other maybe once a week, usually in passing, but today he looked purposeful. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Always. What's up?" Webb closed the door and sat down. He looked older than he had in Afghanistan. Thinner, more gray in his hair. "I got a call this morning," he said, "from Sarah Reeves." Maya's heart skipped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. Amelia's fine. They're doing as well as can be expected." Webb leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "She wants to meet you." "Me? Why?" "Because you were there when Danny died. Because you tried to save him. Because—" Webb paused. "Because she wants to thank you." "There's nothing to thank me for. I didn't save him." "You saved 4 others. That matters to her. It matters to all of us." Webb pulled out a piece of paper. "She's in Iowa, Des Moines. She said if you ever wanted to visit, she'd like that. No pressure, just an open invitation." Maya took the paper. Sarah's phone number and address were written in Webb's neat handwriting. "I don't know what I'd say to her." "You'll figure it out." Webb stood. "Look, I know the last 6 months have been hell. All the attention, the interviews, the pressure. But Carter, what you did matters. You saved lives. You changed the way the Army thinks about snipers, about women in combat, about what's possible. That's worth something." "Is it worth 8 lives? That's not a fair question, and you know it." "Feels fair to me." Webb sighed. "You're carrying weight that isn't yours to carry. Those men died because the enemy killed them, not because you failed. You did everything right. When are you going to accept that when it stops feeling wrong?" He left without another word. Maya sat there holding Sarah Reeves's contact information and feeling the walls close in. She'd spent 6 months trying to move forward, trying to turn grief into purpose, trying to teach others so they wouldn't make her mistakes. But the truth was, she didn't know if she'd made mistakes or not. She'd replayed that day 1,000 times. Seen the fighters climbing. Called the warning. Watched the mountain explode. Every time she tried to find the moment where she could have changed things. Where she could have been faster, smarter, better. Every time the mountain still exploded. She looked at the photo on her wall, at that burning valley, at the place where Maya Carter died and Ghost was born. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. Sarah Reeves answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello, Mrs. Reeves. This is Staff Sergeant Maya Carter. Captain Webb said you wanted to talk." A pause. Then quietly, "Oh my God. Yes, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I should." "Why not?" Maya closed her eyes. "Because I didn't save him. I tried, but I didn't. And I don't know what to say about that." "You don't have to say anything about that." Sarah's voice was thick with emotion. "I just wanted to hear from someone who was there, who knew him, who—" A breath. "Danny wrote about you in his letters. Did you know that Captain Webb mentioned it? He said you were the best shot he'd ever seen. Said you made him feel safe. Said if anything ever happened, he was glad you were watching over them." Sarah's voice broke. "I need you to know that meant something to me. When they told me he was gone, that was the only comfort I had. That he wasn't alone. That someone tried." Maya's throat was tight. "I'm sorry I couldn't do more." "You did enough. 4 men came home because of you. 4 families didn't get the call I got. That's not nothing." They talked for 20 minutes. Sarah told her about Amelia, about how she had Danny's eyes and his smile, about how hard it was some days, but how she was managing, about how she wanted Amelia to know her father died protecting something that mattered. Before they hung up, Sarah said, "If you're ever in Iowa, please come visit. I'd like Amelia to meet you. I'd like her to know the woman who tried to bring her daddy home." Maya promised she would. When the call ended, she sat in the silence of her office and felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. That weekend, Maya drove to North Carolina, to the range where her father had taught her to shoot. It was private land owned by a friend of his, and they let her use it whenever she wanted. She set up at 1,000 meters, then 1,500, then 2,000, pushed herself to the edge of what her rifle could do, and then pushed further. Her father's voice was there like always. Quiet. Steady. "What are you trying to prove, baby girl? That I can do it again? That it wasn't just luck? And if you can't, then I don't deserve to be teaching others." "That's stupid." Maya paused, finger on the trigger. "What? You're trying to recreate a moment that can't be recreated. That shot in Afghanistan worked because everything aligned desperation, training, necessity. You can't force that. You can only prepare for it. So what do? You teach. You pass on what I taught you. You make sure the next generation is ready when their moment comes. That's how you honor the dead, not by punishing yourself for surviving." Maya took the shot. Hit center mass at 2,000 meters. She took another. And another. 17 shots. 17 hits. When she finished, she sat on the ground rifle across her lap and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in 6 months. Peace. Not complete peace. Maybe that would never come. But enough peace to keep moving forward. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of her class and told them something she'd never told anyone. "You all want to know the secret to that 3,000-meter shot," she said. "You want the formula, the technique, the magic bullet that makes the impossible possible. So I'm going to tell you." The room leaned forward. There is no secret. There's only preparation meeting opportunity. There's only training until your hands know what to do when your mind's too scared to think. There's only trusting yourself when everything says you should fail. She paused. "My father taught me that. He taught me that a sniper's job isn't to make the hard shots. It's to be ready when the hard shots are the only option left." Staff Sergeant Devlin raised his hand. "But how do you know you're ready?" "You don't. You just have to trust that the work you've done is enough. And then you take the shot." Maya smiled slightly. "Because the alternative is watching people die. And that's not acceptable." The class nodded. Something had shifted. They weren't looking at her like a legend anymore. They were looking at her like a teacher. That was better. After class, Maya walked to her office and found an envelope on her desk. No return address. She opened it. Inside was a photo. Sarah Reeves and baby Amelia. On the back, Sarah had written, "Thank you for trying. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being there. Come visit when you can. We'd love to meet Ghost." Maya pinned the photo next to the one of the burning valley. 2 images. One of death. One of life. Both equally important. That evening she got a call from Colonel Morrison. "Carter, I'm putting together that specialized unit I told you about. I know you said no before, but I'm asking again. We need someone like you. Someone who can make the impossible shots when it matters." Maya looked at the photos on her wall, thought about Sarah and Amelia, thought about Webb and Torres and Kim, thought about the students in her classroom who needed someone to teach them how to survive. "I appreciate the offer, sir, but I'm where I need to be. Teaching, passing it forward. My father taught me everything he knew. Now I'm teaching others. That feels right." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Your father would be proud." "I hope so." "He is. I guarantee it." Morrison paused. "Keep doing what you're doing, Carter. The Army needs teachers as much as it needs shooters." They hung up. Maya sat at her desk and pulled out a notebook. Started writing a new lesson plan. This one about making decisions under pressure. About choosing who lives when you can't save everyone. About being human in a job that demanded you be a machine. As she wrote, she thought about that day in the valley. About 17 bullets and 4 lives and 8 empty caskets. About a shot that traveled 2 miles through wind and heat and impossibility to hit a target the size of a dinner plate. People called it a miracle, called her a hero, called her ghost. But Maya knew the truth. It wasn't a miracle. It was training. It was preparation. It was her father's voice in her head saying, "Trust yourself, baby girl. Trust yourself." And it was the simple, terrible, beautiful fact that when the moment came when 4 lives hung in the balance and the math said it couldn't be done, she'd taken the shot anyway. Because that's what snipers do. They calculate the impossible. They trust their training. They exhale between heartbeats and squeeze the trigger. And sometimes, if they're lucky and skilled and desperate enough, they change the world 1 bullet at a time. 6 months after that, Maya got promoted to Sergeant Major, youngest in her position in the Army. They offered her a desk job. She declined. Said she wanted to stay in the classroom. Said she wanted to keep teaching. They let her. And every morning before her first class, Maya Carter stood in front of those 2 photos, the burning valley and the smiling baby, and reminded herself why she was there. Not to be a legend, not to be ghost, but to make sure that when the next impossible moment came for someone else, they'd be ready. Because her father had taught her well. And now it was her turn to teach others. That was the real shot that changed everything. Not the bullet that flew 3,000 meters, but the decision to turn survival into purpose, to turn grief into teaching, to turn one impossible day into a lifetime of making sure others were prepared for their impossible days. And in that classroom at Fort Benning with 32 students who would go on to save hundreds of lives, Maya finally understood what her father had meant all those years ago. A sniper's job isn't just to shoot. It's to make one shot that changes everything. She'd made hers, and now she was teaching others to make theirs. That was enough. That was everything. That was how a ghost became human again, by passing forward the lessons learned in fire and blood and the thin air of mountains where the impossible became routine, and courage had no gender, only discipline, purpose, and a steady hand on the trigger. Maya Carter had survived the explosion when no one else did. She'd made the longest shot in combat history when the math said it couldn't be done. She'd saved 4 lives with 17 bullets and changed the way the world thought about what was possible. But her greatest achievement wasn't that 3,000-meter shot. It was standing in that classroom every day, teaching the next generation, making sure her father's legacy and Reeves's sacrifice and Hernandez's courage and all the others who didn't come home meant something more than just numbers on a report. It was turning grief into purpose, survival into service, and one impossible shot into a lifetime of making sure others were ready when their impossible moment came. Because Maya Carter wasn't just the ghost of Hindu Kush anymore. She was the woman who proved that courage has no limits, that impossible is just a word, and that sometimes the most important shot you take isn't the one that travels the farthest. It's the one that brings everyone home. And that was the story she told herself every morning when she looked at those photos on her wall. The story of a daughter who became her father's legacy. A soldier who became a teacher. A ghost who learned to be human again. One shot at a time.